We had a repeat customer reach out to us who was trying to get rid of his old pool table, so instead of just taking it off his hands, we convinced him that he needed to buy a new type of games table from us.
Haley, your job's being stolen. We have a new photographer. Just pulling up to Husky Hardwoods right now. So this is another live edge supplier of ours that we've done, I think, 2 orders from now, and we have a 3rd order that we're waiting to get shipped to us. Did our load get picked up yet?
No, it's in the shop over there.
Oh, okay. So
but
take a look. Oh yeah.
I think they're thick enough where you can still, they'll be fine.
You guys usually mill your wood pretty heavy, so
try, with that kind of stuff. Yeah. But
cool. Thank you, no.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah,
so we got things to do. Let's do some stuff here. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming out.
About 2 years ago, this client purchased a really nice figured walnut dining table from us, and now that he's going to have this extra room in his basement, we talked to him about the idea of creating a custom poker table with a brand new concept we hadn't really done before. So he wanted premium materials. We selected Bastogne walnut for the outside ring, which is what you're seeing us select right now, and then we've got some beautiful Clara walnut burl that our friends at GL Veneer are going to prepare for that center panel.
So we're making the perimeter of this game table out of a couple slabs of Bastogne walnut. These slabs have a couple inclusions on them as well as checks that we want to not have in the final piece. So I'm making a negative template that will be the size of my piece that'll be ran on the CNC, as well as the size of the piece being cut out of the piece I'm running on the CNC. That way we can lay everything out, make sure it'll work before we just cut up a $2,000 piece of wood. That's the size of the piece that goes on the CNC, and then that's your cutout, so we'll know exactly. So was the piece that came out of that the exact size, or is that the exact size?
This is the exact size.
Okay, except we'll have sharp corners. Yeah, okay. Good, have to be clear. We're done on the sander, so you want to throw this onto the part there. That to be like the nice side of the piece.
Yeah, and then also like I don't.
Want to put the other one on top?
I think so.
This sucks. It's like
it looks like rusty. Like it doesn't even look nice. Yeah.
I feel like it would look nicer just like clean, perfect black walnut.
Yeah, like some of this isn't the nicest. Let's see.
Stupid. Let's go check that other one Dylan was talking about.
So these initial slabs that we grabbed, after we got them down on the workbench and looked at them, there's quite a few cracks and some checking throughout the slabs, so we ended up having to go back into the pile and pick some brand new slabs, but fortunately, all of this material came from a single tree that we got from Husky Hardwoods, so we had a perfect grain match all the way throughout. So number one, this client wanted a poker table, something with a felted surface that he could play poker on and just get that really nice gaming experience. But he knew that this table wasn't always going to get used for that purpose, and he actually said what it's mostly going to get used for is his wife to store her plants on top of. So he needed a surface that was going to be more impervious to any kind of wear and tear, but still looked very beautiful. So we came up with this concept for this table that allows the center panel to flip over and have 2 different surfaces depending on how you're going to be using the piece. Like I said, side number 1 is just going to have some nice felt for playing cards or playing poker, but side number 2 is going to be a Clara walnut burl veneer panel that we had prepared from GL Veneer. You guys have seen us purchase lots of big live edge slabs from GL Veneer, but like their name says, veneer is their specialty, so we knew those were the guys to go to, and of course Daniel had his little stash of Clara walnut burl that he dug into for me, and you're going to get to see later on in this video an example of some of the best Clara walnut burl that we have ever seen. Now that we've got our Bastogne walnut selected for clear grain and no inclusions, we can begin prepping these pieces before they go onto the CNC machine. There's a lot of tricky geometry that's involved in this piece because we have our round center panel and then we need some form of joinery to join all of these individual pieces of Bastogne walnut in a ring that will join to that center panel. So, like I said, very tricky, lots of math involved, and of course, we're going to cheat. We're going to use the CNC machine. Before we get the pieces onto the CNC machine, we essentially just have to S4S them to the final size that we have told the machine the part is going to be. Just so you don't run into any surprises, you don't want to put a bigger piece on there than what you've told the machine, or vice versa. So once everything's programmed, we have our vacuum pods that are going to hold that piece down into place, and then the CNC is going to do all the magic and take that program that we wrote and cut out our radius piece that will join to the outer ring of this table. One thing you'll notice looking at some of these components, they're not only rounded going around the outside perimeter of the panel, but they're also rounded on the underside to give a thinner profile when you're viewing this table from the edge. So that's a very small detail, but quite a labor-intensive detail because we had to write a 3D program to actually carve that consistent radius on the underside of these pieces. You'll notice that there's actually two round plywood panels that we're working on right now. One is going to be the base panel that is purely there just to support our show panel. And the other one is that Clara Walnut Burl panel. So when this piece is flipping, it's going to need something underneath it to support it. We did run into a little bit of a dilemma while running this on our machine. It ended up being 1 inch oversize of the maximum diameter that our CNC can cut. So we're about to do something here that looks a little silly, but we weren't left with much of another choice. After we had the machine cut 7/8 of the way around the circle, we had to put a template on there, trace out the remaining bit that we had to cut, and then we used a jigsaw to cut close to that line where we could then finally route it down to its final size. So even though we had that CNC machine, it wasn't quite big enough to do the job. That being said though, in the near future, not anytime soon, but it's on our horizon, we are starting to look at 5-axis CNC machines. That's the next big investment we want to make into our business. You guys saw us get that new planer sander from SCM. Well, now we need a 5-axis machine. And we also need a way for our client to be able to get their hand inside there and push that show panel up so they can flip it to its other side. So we just cut out some holes, one on each side of the table, that are big enough for our client to stick his hand up so he can raise his panel and get it flipped over quite easily. Once we've got our outer Bastogne walnut ring completely machined on the CNC machine, it's time to install some dominoes for joinery. So after thinking about it, we thought that this was going to be the most accurate and easiest method to join these pieces together. We're just using the small Domino 500, putting a few of those on every connection, and then we'll use Titebond 3 to secure everything in place. Now that we've got everything cut and glued together, we can get all of these pieces upstairs and begin our finishing process. We're going to start off with that base panel of plywood. For this piece, we're just going with a black stain, the same type of finish that we would put on one of our X bases. And the reason we went with this color is because it's going to match perfectly to the base that our client selected for this table. Now you'll probably notice you haven't seen us construct any base for this piece, and that's because we actually purchased the base for this table. It's coming from our friends at Flowy Line. Our client picked it out himself, and it's honestly the perfect type of base for this style of table. So you guys are going to see coming up here towards the end what our client picked, but I absolutely love the way it went with this, and it's black, so it matches this piece perfectly. Once our stain has been applied, we let that dry for 24 hours, and then we're using our UV cure oil to really speed up the process on a piece like this. In the past, we would have to go with a coat of furniture oil, let that dry for 24 hours, and then do one more final coat. Whereas with our UV oil, we stain, we let that dry, we get our 2 coats of the UV finish on, and we're good to go. And now we can add that felt layer that our client requested for the gaming side of his table. So this wasn't just average felt either. We still used our normal upholstery supplier to source this felt, and they brought it in as a special order for our client. It ended up being pretty pricey, but it has a really nice, soft, and consistent feel over the whole surface. So to adhere this to that panel, we're just using some contact cement that we're spraying on both sides of the piece.
Sorry to all the upholsterers out there for doing this really weird. This is kind of our second time ever doing it. It works. I used to do a lot of laminate counters, so I'm just doing it the way I used to do laminate counters, and it works.
Flat. With that contact adhesive, if we get even the slightest wrinkle, as soon as it makes contact, there's going to be no going back from there. So now that we have our base panel prepared, we've got it stained black on one side, we have it felted on the other side, we can begin assembling that outer ring of Bastogne walnut. These pieces need to get physically glued together so they can hold everything in place. So we're doing a little bit of a test fit here where we're putting all those rings around the outside edge, making sure our joinery closes nice and tightly, and then we can put some screw holes in just to temporarily fix in place where this base panel is going to fix to the outer ring of Bastogne walnut. And we also had to come up with a pretty creative clamping solution to make this work. So we temporarily fixed some wooden blocks using double-sided tape to the top side of this ring so that we have somewhere to get clamps on to pull those joints even tighter. And then we're just using a ratchet strap around the outside edge to get equal clamping pressure all the way around this piece. Because not only does it have to get pulled tight in a horizontal plane, but we need to make sure that it's also going to stay flat and it doesn't buckle up vertically. So for the joinery itself, we're using Titebond 3, but then we're just using some of our Black Forest CA glue to fix those blocks for clamping into place, and we've got a little piece of masking tape underneath so we can knock everything off quite easily after. Now that that glue up is done, we can remove all of the clamps and get this piece sanded up to 320 grit so we can apply our finish. We also had to be quite careful here of that center panel because it has already been completely covered in felt, so if we get even a single drop of oil or glue on there, we essentially have to restart, pull our ring apart, get that felt off, and redo it. With our UV cure finish, it dries really quick, but it doesn't necessarily bring out as much color as some of these thinner penetrating oils. So that's why we like to go with a coat of our Black Forest furniture oil for the initial coat, as it's going to bring out all of the color and character that this wood has to offer. And then we can allow that to cure for a few days before we come along with the UV cure finish. So there is still a little bit of waiting when you do this first coat of furniture oil, but in our opinion, it is well worth it because especially on a species like Bastogne walnut, you want to see every little feature that this wood has to offer. And here we are cutting the Clara Walnut burl panel to its size on our CNC machine. So the really nice thing about the service that GL offers is that they prepared this entire panel for us. They gave us a bad side that would be covered in felt, and then we have the other side with the beautiful Clara Walnut burl, and we've got a nice birch core on here for great stability on this panel. So it takes an extra step of the workout for us, and that we can just order this panel the way we want it. It shows up perfectly, and then we can go ahead to do the rest of our remaining work. Like I said, this client wanted best of the best materials, so we had to beg Daniel to go into his private collection to find this, and sure enough, he delivered. It's a little bit nerve-wracking working on a panel like this. Obviously, lots of people are used to working with veneer all the time, but we honestly aren't. We are almost primarily a solid wood shop, and solid wood can be quite forgiving because if you get a dent, a chip, a scratch, well, you just plane it down to make it thinner and you've got a brand new surface. But with something like this, if we get one scratch, one chip, or a single dent, we run the risk of totally ruining this panel. So it's one of those measure twice, cut once kind of situations. Another detail that our client requested for this piece was that there was another wood species separating the walnut burl from the Bastogne walnut. So we had to come up with a system to machine on moldings, and the species that our client selected was Wenge. So everything on here is a different shade of brown, but they all slightly vary. Wenge would be the darkest out of all these. Then you've got that Clara walnut in the middle, which is a little bit lighter than the Wenge, and then the even lighter Bastogne walnut on the outside edge. So being wood nerds, we really appreciate a piece like this that just highlights all the unique characteristics of these different species. And in my opinion, the three of these actually worked quite well together. The only thing that I think might have looked kind of cool to try out maybe on a future piece is doing a contrasting material for this outer ring, like a figured maple or something of that sort. But I would love to hear what you guys think in the comments below. Which three woods would you pick for your combination on a table like this? And finally, after getting that Wenge onto our walnut burl panel, we can bring this piece upstairs and have it begin the finishing process too. Just like we did on the other piece, we're going to be sealing it with an initial coat of that furniture oil and following everything up with the UV cure finish. And the only thing you haven't seen us do yet that we will do towards the end is apply that final coat of our ceramic coating. And as soon as we've got that final coat cured with the UV light, we can immediately come along and apply our ceramic coating. And as you can see, the ceramic coating is going to bring out the maximum color and character that the wood has to offer, and it's also going to bump up the protection of the piece quite significantly. It makes the surface hydrophobic, so all your liquids are going to bead right off, and it's also going to bump up your scratch resistance on the piece too. And now that we've got everything finished, the last step before we get this delivered to our client is to attach that base from Flowy Line that I mentioned earlier. The nice thing about these bases from Flowy Line is they come all pre-machined with the holes, so you just need to set them up on the underside of your table, mark out which holes you want to put in, and we're using threaded inserts to secure this to the underside of the piece. So the big benefit of threaded inserts is that you can take this apart and put it together as many times as you need without stripping out any of those holes. You could obviously just screw this directly into your table, and if you don't plan on ever moving it, there's not really any problems with that, but our client is probably going to keep this piece forever, so if he ever moves or he wants to give it away even to some of his children when he gets a new type of game table, it can easily come apart for that. And as a final detail, something we like to do on every single piece is install a solid pewter badge onto the underside of the table. So we had these custom manufactured from a company in the UK. We just sent them our artwork, and I think we ordered about like 1,000 of these. So we just put them wherever we think is best, and it's something that doesn't usually get seen, but it's a nice way to brand these as a genuine Black Forest piece. And now we can get the piece all packed up into the truck and off to our client's home for delivery. And fortunately, my place is only about 5 minutes away to take the pool table to.
Well, you did the long way. Oh. Yeah, we can do that. So we've got our client's game table here. This is the one that flips and has the burl on one side with felt on the other. But we've got to get his pool table out of here, so we're gonna unload it. I'm actually buying it from him, and then we'll set up the poker table right here in the middle.
Got to put the thing on the tree. Yeah, okay. Oh, hang on.
What are those pieces made out of?
Slate, so stone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's amazing after 10 years, though. It's looking at the other.
I think we'll probably center it right in. So, easy enough to move it.
Oh, yeah, that's really. Stanky.
That's where the tape is, so that's where it should land. Ready, Garrett?
Yep.
Take whatever you want to give me. This is what we should be building at stake.
Yes, I fully agree.
Is 4 years?
Yep.
Because it's super like just for my son upstairs, like a big. I started at a scale like I can't really do very well. Hey, grab them these boxes.
Yeah, getting them,
Going. There's a fan panel in the floor there, which is it's so cute. Oh my god.
Yeah, guys. What do you do for work then, Brad? If you
I am, well, I'm kind of, I don't like using the term semi-retired, but I consult, so I went to school and did geophysics. I'm their geophysical advisor, so when they need me for stuff, that restoration hardware there.
Oh, right in there, okay.
Yeah, you go to restoration hardware.
Looks pretty good in here.
Big and all.
Pretty nice, hey Brad?
Yeah, no, that looks great.
Wow.
Yeah. Let's flip it. So it looks like on the upside. You guys have my pictures. Yeah, so these were the chairs I was talking about, Dylan. So they would be kind of a bit.
keep it long patterns?
Yeah,
That's pretty nice.
Great height. Oh, they're comfortable.
I know they're super
Yeah,
comfortable.
yeah, those are really nice chairs.
Do
Nice back. Okay, so we just got the table delivered here into our client's home. We've taken his pool table away. That'll go to my house. But let's do a little recap on this piece and the details we have. So this outer ring is solid Bastow walnut. That came from our friends down at Husky Hardwoods. And a detail that isn't super obvious when you're looking at it from the top is the tapered edge that we have on the underside. So we've got kind of this radius underneath that just brings us to about a 3/4 of an inch thickness on the outside edge and just gives a bit of a lighter profile for the whole table. And then like you saw John and I just do, this has that flipping top so you can raise that up quite easily and then flip this over when you want to go from dining to gaming arrangement. And to support this table, we didn't actually build this base. This is a base that we got from our friends at Flowy Line. And it honestly is the perfect style of base for this kind of table because you get leg clearance all the way around and it's just a very elegant way to support this top. So let us know what you guys think about this piece in the comments below. It's a little bit different than our standard dining table with an X base, but I think the boys had a lot of fun knocking this one out and we would love to hear what you guys think. We'll see you in the next one. No fun? You should have paid it, John.
It was so hard.
Like,
It was fun.
I guess we should.
you like the challenge, right?
I do. When we did the one game, that was the funnest part.
The felt is
It's
so
darkened a
good.
lot. The one game's darkened a lot in the last
Month?
It almost matched the Bastow when he first oiled it.
the same color.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah, no,
I really like the blue felt.
Yeah, I do too.
It looks really good. I'm tired of seeing green and. That someone comment on that. Sure. I mean these ones are upstairs, but I might we have 8 of those. I'll probably order 4 more for down here. So bring that down.